Eventually karma came for King Leopold II. His son was born with a chilling deformity, one that mirrored Leopold's most horrific crimes in Belgium. King Leopold II was hailed as the Builder King for the building projects he commissioned, but the years in the Congo Free State lay the horrific truth. Hello and welcome again to the Global Cultural Drift Podcast. Geopolitical Queen here with today's episode on how the Butcher King, Leopold II of Belgium, brutalized and exploited the Congo Free State from 1885 to 1908. Leopold was a butcher. The French Revolution had impacts far beyond Paris. As the guillotines rolled into the Place de Concorde, Leopold II's grandfather had to run for his life, fleeing to the United Kingdom and dying 2 years later. Leopold's mother, Louise of Orléans, always considered sensitive and fragile, was devastated and followed him to the grave. Later that same year, the teenage Leopold II was losing family left and right, but then he found someone to mend his broken heart. 3 years after his mother's death, he married Marie Henriette of Austria. Much like Leopold, the people of Belgium fell in love with Henriette for her lively and energetic personality and benevolent disposition. She seemed to be everything that Leopold II was not. His official public career started in 1855 as a senator and as the heir apparent to the monarchy. He didn't waste any time voicing his opinions, no matter how controversial they were. He became a vocal advocate for expanding Belgian colonial holdings, touring regions in Asia and Africa looking for prospects. On December 10, 1865, King Leopold I died, and 1 week later, his son Leopold II took his oath of office and became King of the Belgians. Despite the horrors he would unleash on the Congolese people, at home in Belgium, Leopold was actually a progressive figure. Some of his biggest legislative accomplishments included massive social reforms. He even gave workers the right to form unions. He passed a series of child labor laws that protected Belgium's youth from exploitation and even instituted something of a weekend, giving workers off Sundays. Grimly ironic, given what he was about to do in the Congo Free State. Part of Leopold II's grand vision included a vast, sprawling overseas empire made up of cash colonies, but his actions betrayed his true intentions. He only seemed interested in acquiring colonies for himself as a private citizen, using money from the government. At first, he set his sights on the Philippines. He believed that Queen Isabella II of Spain, the incumbent colonial power in the Philippines, was weak and therefore to sell off her holdings. However, his ambassador, sensing the offense it would cause, never relayed his offer when Isabella II lost her crown in 1868. Leopold made another move to buy the Philippines. There was just one problem. He couldn't afford it. He tried to devise a plan that would have made the Philippines into an independent state, meaning that a private citizen could purchase it. When that plan was unsuccessful, he set his greedy sights somewhere else, Africa. For the better part of a decade, Leopold worked in vain to acquire colonies throughout Africa and Asia, but by 1876, it was plainly obvious that he would have to change his strategy. He established an international scientific and philanthropic association called the International African Society. In reality, it was no charitable organization. It was a private holding company owned by him. He then hired the services of the explorer, Henry Martin Stanley, and set him off in the direction of the Congo to establish a colony with some clever diplomacy. Leopold managed to get most of Europe and the United States to recognize him as this newly claimed territory sovereign at the conclusion of the Berlin Conference in 1885. Leopold finally realized his ambition. Belgium had just become a huge colonial power. The newly minted Congo Free State was nearly 80 times larger than Belgium itself, and Leopold had it all to himself to rule over with his private army, the dreaded force, publicly. The first of the Congo's natural resources to be exploited was ivory. Although highly lucrative, Leopold wasn't satisfied. It wasn't bringing in enough money to fund his grand ambitions in Belgium. But then a sudden and sharp increase in the demand for rubber changed everything. The Congo Free State had plenty of natural resources that Leopold could harvest for his personal and political gain, and rubber had the potential to be the most lucrative. But harvesting the sap from rubber plants required hours upon hours of grueling labor back at home in Belgium. Leopold continued to champion the rights of common laborers. However, all the way down in the Congo Free State, he adopted a very different policy with his new need for cheap and plentiful labor. Leopold jettisoned his obligations from the Berlin Conference and dropped all pretense of running a charitable organization. What ensued was pure horror. Having shut out much of the outside world, Leopold was free to do as he pleased in the Congo Free State using his force public. He forced the native population to work collecting sap to make rubber, which he then sold for exorbitant prices. The people of the Congo Free State never saw a penny, but they did see something else. Suffice to say, the people didn't want to willingly go to work for Leopold. So he had to adopt some horrifying tactics of coercion, beating the masses, indiscriminate executions, and brutal mutilations to ensure compliance amongst even the most independent-minded Congolese people. The force, public, abducted the families of rubber workers. This infamous photograph shows a grieving Congolese man. In front of him, the severed hand and foot of his 5-year-old daughter. Failure to meet rubber collection quotas was punishable by death, and the force public had to provide the severed hand of their victim as proof. Sometimes these victims would survive being shot and pretend to be dead as their hands were cut off. The baskets of severed hands set down at the feet of the European post commanders became the symbol of the Congo Free State. The collection of hands became end in itself. Forced public soldiers brought them to the stations in place of rubber. They even went out to harvest them instead of rubber. They became a sort of currency. When the English missionary John Harris visited the Congo Free State, he couldn't find the words to describe the horrors he had witnessed. He wrote, "I have just returned from a journey inland to the village of Insongboyo. The abject misery and utter abandon is positively indescribable. Despite a quiet but growing chorus of protests and condemnations, Leopold continued his reign of misery. The author, historian, and journalist Adam Hochschild was the first to provide a proper estimate of the devastating effects of Leopold's reign, using estimates from Belgium's own census. He put the cost of Leopold's cruel policies into stark focus. 10 million lives lost, around half of the entire population. The barbaric treatment of the Congolese was bad enough, but the secondary and tertiary consequences of willful neglect and malice were even worse. Diseases such as smallpox and sleeping sickness swept through the Congo Free State and claimed millions of lives. It was always only a matter of time before karma caught up with Leopold II, and in 1902, it finally did. When the British novelist Joseph Conrad toured the Congo as a steamer captain, he was so moved by the plight of the people that he changed the course of history. His 1902 novella, Heart of Darkness, gave the world a first-person glimpse into the atrocities being committed due to European colonialism in Africa. With the book gripping readers all over the world and pressure mounting on Leopold, he decided to counter his bad press with good press. He paid the author Mary French Sheldon to tour the Congo Free State, ensuring that she only saw what he wanted her to see. Upon her return to England, she wrote, I have witnessed more atrocities in London streets than I have ever seen in the Congo. Leopold's actions eventually led to international outrage, and by 1908, even Leopold's Belgian subjects had grown sick of his atrocities. After facing political opposition and pressure from human rights activists and foreign governments, he was forced to sell the Congo Free State to the Belgian people, turning it into a Belgian colony. The Belgian people had no choice but to buy the troubled colony from their corrupt king. In total, they forked over 215 million francs, with a staggering 50 million going to Leopold personally, with another 45 million going towards his domestic building project. Leopold II might have been a butcher in the Congo, but at home in Belgium, he was a builder. He used much of the profits he made from the Congo Free State to fund massive building projects across his kingdom. Some of the more iconic structures include the Basilica of the Sacred Heart Hippodrome, Wellington Racetrack, and ironically, the Royal Museum for Central Africa. After the Belgian Parliament forced Leopold to sell the Congo Free State, instead of owning up to his many crimes, he began destroying evidence. He was said to have allegedly told one of his aides, "They have no right to know what I did there." Not all of Leopold II's bloody profits from the Congo went to the Belgian people in the form of lavish new buildings. The builder king also splurged on himself. He purchased several private properties, expanded the royal castle of Laeken, and built resplendent personal gardens. His marriage to Henriette ended up not being what he'd hoped for, even though the couple managed to produce 4 children. Leopold lost his heir. His only son, Prince Leopold, fell into a pond at the age of 9 and contracted pneumonia, a sickness from which he would never recover. After losing his son, Leopold fell into depression, and his marriage suffered the consequences. He tried in vain to conceive another son and heir, but only managed to produce another daughter. Heartbroken and disappointed, Leopold and Henriette separated in 1902, the same year that Heart of Darkness came out. Henriette died after leaving a memorial service. An Italian anarchist fired 3 shots at Leopold's carriage, all of which missed. Despite his horrible reputation, the Belgian people rejoiced that he had survived later that day while attending the theater. The audience gave him a raucous round of applause, even though Leopold's reputation on the international stage had taken a severe hit. He still commanded enough respect to hear from foreign dignitaries. Even the Pope sent him a letter in solidarity. It turns out that Leopold was about as good a husband to Marie Henriette as he was a king to the Congolese people. Throughout his marriage, he carried on various affairs, but none kept his attention, quite like the 16-year-old working girl, Caroline Lacqua, at 65 years old. 3 years before his wife died, Leopold struck up the affair that would ruin what was left of his already soiled reputation. His decade-long relationship with Lacqua scandalized the Belgian people and caused even more outrage than the revelation of his atrocities in the Congo. The lovesick king gave her extravagant gifts, piles of money, entire estates, and the title of Baroness Va. Leopold managed to produce 2 illegitimate sons with Lacqua, both of whom he granted honorary titles. His second son was born with a severely deformed hand. The newspaper ERS in Belgium called it vengeance from on high. Leopold wanted to ensure that all of his many estates, castles, and heritage buildings stayed within his family. However, as he had no heir, he devised a plan. He created the Royal Trust, ensuring that his assets would go to Belgium after he passed. And of course, he included a clause that allowed his family to use the properties at their leisure. His final act as King of Belgium only cemented his place as a villainous character in a secret clandestine ceremony. Just 5 days before his death, Leopold did the unthinkable. He married his longtime mistress. Fortunately, when the marriage came to light, the Belgian parliament invalidated it. Leopold II never truly paid the price for the horrific things he did in the Congo, and no amount of grand edifices in Belgium could bury his sins. After his death, he bequeathed a fortune in Congo securities to his mistress, Lakwa. His daughters from his first marriage tried in vain to get the money back, but in the end, Lakwa made off with Leopold II's blood-soaked fortune. So here you have it, folks. If you enjoyed hearing about how the Butcher King, Leopold II, who killed over 10 million Congolese people as a result of forced labor, mutilation, and mass killings during his barbaric reign, then kindly leave your comments in the comments section below. And thanks for tuning in. I will be back with the next broadcast. Good day.